Oh, hello there, Earthling, and welcome back to Podcastage. Today I'm back with a review of the Elgato Wave Neo. If you do want to check it out, it costs between $65 and $90. I'll throw some links in the description down below. Full disclosure, I bought this with my own money. All of my recording settings will be listed in the doobly-doo as well as the description, and now let's talk about what comes in the box. Oh my gosh, you get the microphone! You're gonna get a desktop stand, a 1.5 meter USB-C to USB-A cable, a 5/8 to 3/8 inch or 1/4 inch threading adapter, and that is it. Then as far as the build quality of this thing, this microphone just feels okay to me. It has an all plastic body and it does not feel amazing. The mount is made out of metal though, and it has 5/8 inch threading. On the front you'll find a light as well as a capacitive mute function. On the back you have the USB-C port as well as a 3.5mm headphone jack, which doesn't offer zero latency monitoring, but you can hear yourself once you route the mic through the Wavelink software, and whether you care or not, it is made in China. I'm not going to read all of the specs to you, but I will have what I could find up on screen as well as in the description in case you want to pause and take a closer look at anything. Now spinning around the Wave Neo to 90 degrees, here is how it sounds. Continuing around to 180 degrees, this is the rear. Continuing around to the second 90-degree angle, there it is. And then rotating and ending at the front of the mic. Now let's hear how this thing does at rejecting plosives. Please provide pizza pronto. Please provide pizza pronto. Please provide prepared pizza pronto. Pals. How did it do? I cannot hear anything. Now I am right on top of the microphone to exaggerate the proximity effect, and here's how it's sounding. Now about 3 inches off of the corner of my mouth, and here's how it sounds. Now about 1 foot away from the Wave Neo. About 2 feet away from the Wave Neo, and about 4 feet away from the Elgato Wave Neo. Now typing on Gatoron Blue switches to see how much of my voice versus how much of the keyboard it picks up. And for the gamers, here are the SAD W and spacebar keys. Now here is how the Elgato Wave Neo sounds about 6 inches from my mouth in a relatively well-treated room. And now here is how the Elgato Wave Neo sounds about 6 inches from my mouth in a completely untreated room. I'm also annoying, so I'm going to tap on the microphone to see if there are any kind of resonant frequencies. Now I want to hear how the microphone and the mount reject shock, so I'll start by bumping on my desk to see how much of that it can reject. And then I will tap on the boom arm. Now let's hear how the microphone sounds on the provided desktop stand. So it is sat directly in front of me, I would say about 10 inches from my mouth. And here's how it's sounding. And here's how the microphone sounds about 4 inches from my mouth on a boom arm that's mounted to the desk. And again, here is how the microphone sounds on the provided desktop stand. No processing is engaged, and there you go. And here is another sample of the microphone back on the boom arm, just a couple inches away from my mouth. And what if I were to bump on my desk while I have the microphone on the provided desktop stand? How does it do at rejecting that? And on the boom arm. Now let's hear how they've implemented the mute function, so I will keep. Now I am unmuted now, and then unmuted again. I need to take a break. Now I am unmuted again. I am so annoying. Okay, now we are entering my personal hell, and we will be doing 12 comparisons between the Wave Neo and a bunch of other USB mics, so please watch the entire thing, and let's get into it. This is the Wave Neo, about 6 inches off, input level set at 11.2%. Let's hear the first mic. First, I am on the Samson Go Mic, about 6 inches off on the Cardioid polar pattern, input level set at 9.3%, recording 16-bit 48 kilohertz. This microphone ranges from $20 to $50, and let's jump back and do a whole lot more. Back on the Wave Neo, here's how it sounds as a palate cleanser. Let's hear the next microphone. Now I am on the Razer Seiren V3 Mini, aka the Pepto-Bismol pill. I am about 6 inches off. Input level is set at 27%, 24-bit, 48 kilohertz. This microphone costs about $60, and here's how it compares to the Wave Neo. Back on the Wave Neo again, we are recording 24-bit, 48 kilohertz. Let's hear the next one. Now I'm on the HyperX Solocast again, about 6 inches off. Input level set at around 42%, recording 24-bit 48 kilohertz. This microphone costs about $60-ish. There you go, that's the HyperX Solocast against the Wave Neo. Here is the Wave Neo again, all of the processing is disengaged, and here's how it sounds. Next, I'm on the Logitech G Gaming Yeti Orb, about 6 inches off. My input gain is set at 2, and it's very hot, recording 24-bit 48 kilohertz. All of the blue voice effects and processing is disengaged. This is just the raw sound. This microphone costs about $70-ish, and there you go, Yeti Orb versus Wave Neo. I am back on the Wave Neo yet again, so you can hear how this sounds before we jump to another microphone. Now I'm on the Rode NT USB Mini, about 6 inches off. Input gain is set at 15 decibels, or about 14%, recording 24-bit 48 kilohertz. All of the available Rode processing is disengaged, so this is just the raw audio. This microphone costs about $100-ish. There you go, Rode NT USB Mini versus Elgato Wave Neo. Alright, this is the Wave Neo again, another palate cleanser. Talk, 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 yap, yap, yap. Let's hear another one. Now I am on the Neat Bumblebee 2, about 6 inches off. Input level set at 15% or 3 decibels, recording 24-bit 48 kilohertz. This mic has an MSRP of about $100. You can get it for a lot less than that though, and here's how it sounds compared to the Wave Neo. Alright, here is the Wave Neo. We are over the hump. That is enough talking for the palate cleanser. Let's hear the next one. Now I'm on the Logitech G Yeti Nano Cardioid pattern, about 6 inches off, input level set around 23-ish%, input gain set at about 3 to 5, recording 2448. This microphone costs about $100. Oh, Blue Voice software is disengaged. And here's how it sounds compared to the Elgato. Okay, I am on the Wave Neo again. Here's how it sounds. Nothing has changed. Check the lower third. Let's hear the next mic. Now I'm on the Audio Technica AT2020X-USB, about 6 inches off, input level set at 13%, recording 24-bit 48 kilohertz. This microphone costs about $130. The Yeti Nano costed about $120, not $100. And here's how the Audio Technica sounds compared to the Wave Neo. Here is another palate cleanser on the Wave Neo to function as your auditory Q-tip. Let's hear the next microphone. Now onto the Sennheiser Profile USB, about 6 inches off. Input level is set at 100% or 0 dB. Microphone's gain is set at 12 o'clock, recording 24-bit 48 kilohertz. This microphone costs about $130. And here's how it sounds compared to the Neo. Back on the Wave Neo, I will never think that I am not funny. I crack myself up. Let's go to the next microphone, please, and thank you. Next, I'm on the Elgato Wave 3, about 6 inches off with my input gain set at 12 decibels. All of the processing is turned off, including clip guard and vocal focus, all of it. I am recording 24-bit 48 kilohertz. This microphone costs about $150, and here's how it sounds compared to its newer, younger brother. All right, here is the Wave Neo. This is your penultimate palette cleanser. Let's go to the second to last mic. Next, we're into the reference section, and I am on the Shure SM57, which is a handheld dynamic, 6 inches off, running into the Focusrite 18i20 4th Gen. Input gain is set at 52 decibels, recording 24-bit 48 kilohertz. This microphone costs about $100, and everybody has heard this mic 10 million times. That's the SM57. Let's do one more. And we have one more microphone to go. You know what it's going to be, so this is your final palette cleanser on the Elgato Wave Neo. Let's jump to that microphone right now. I am on the Neumann U87 Ai Cardioid pattern, no pad, no filters, 6 inches off, gain set at 26 decibels on the Focusrite 18i20 4th Gen, still recording 24-bit 48 kilohertz. I am including this comparison because people are legitimately asking the question, should I get the Wave Neo or the Neumann U87 Ai? This is not meant to be a reference or a point of comparison. This is legitimately trying to help people decide between these two microphones. Let's go to the music test. We'll never know the truth about all of the EBEs. They may have come, now they're long gone, and we'll never know the truth. We're on our own. I swear I am a happy person. I don't know why everything I write sounds like I just want to die. I don't. I am happy, and I just like aliens, dude. They're so tight. Listen to Mulder. The truth is out there. Okay, conclusion. Let's take a quick look at the Elgato Wavelink software when you're using it with the Wave Neo. First, we'll click the option settings, and this gives us all of the preliminary or top-level options. We have the ability to adjust the LED brightness on the front of the microphone. You have the ability to adjust the microphone's input gain, and they provide you a very useful meter. This would be better if they actually had a scale on this, so you knew what kind of dBFS you're hitting, as opposed to just this unlabeled meter. So it's fairly granular, fairly useful, but with a scale would be exponentially more useful. Then you have your headphone jack output volume slider, which allows you to adjust the volume of the headphone output. And lastly, you have your top-level audio enhancements. With the Wave Neo, you only have Wave Gain Lock, which is going to stop other pieces of software from adjusting your microphone's gain. Now, I want to point out something that is missing from the Wave Neo, and that is my favorite feature from Elgato. It's called Clip Guard, which is a limiter, and it stops you from distorting your microphone. This does not have that, so no matter what I set my gain at, if I get super loud, I will distort the microphone. There's nothing we can do about that. And I have my gain set fairly low at 3 decibels. I can still clip and distort, so that is a huge feature that I love that is missing from this more affordable option. Then you have the ability to mute and unmute the microphone in-app, so I will go ahead and muted. Now I am unmuted. I am unmuted. Does this exhibit that same digital acting as the physical mute button, or is that only a thing when you unmute on the physical mic? And then you have a mixer where you can adjust how much you hear yourself in the headphones and how much of yourself you're routing to the stream. So if you have some software here or anything, you can adjust the stream mix in-app and then route the Elgato Wavelink stream to your streaming software. Then we have the ability to add a bunch of additional audio effects, so I will click this icon at the bottom of the channel. This pops up our audio effects menu. We can turn on the audio effects for our headphones or monitoring, as well as for the stream. So if you only want it going to stream, you can do that. If you only want it in your monitor mix, you can do that. Whichever route you want to go, you have that capability. The first plugin we have is called Voice Focus, and this is just a denoiser. It removes the background noise, and it is powered by AI acoustics. I have an air purifier running. It is very loud and obnoxious. Worst case scenario, let me turn this on. Engaged. I have the strength set to weak. Let me go ahead and move this to the midpoint. How does that do? And then I will increase this to strong. Now I have the strong voice focus engaged. Let me disengage this completely. Here's how it sounds without voice focus on. Here's how it sounds with voice focus on. How does it do it removing that background noise? And how does this impact the tone of my voice? Does it sound all garbled, all messed up, all underwater? Let's go back down to the midpoint. This is medium strength. And then going back down to weak strength. This is weak strength with voice focus. Then we have 8 effects that you're able to download from the Elgato Marketplace. A number of them are free, and then a couple of them do cost $15. I will not be demoing the $15 ones, but we have Pip-Boy voice effects, Black Ops 6 voice modifier, a De-Esser, noise removal for Mac OS, an EQ for Mac OS, a compressor for Mac OS, and that's it. Now I have the EQ engaged, and you have 3 bands here, low, mid, and high. In default, you have a high-pass filter, a low-pass filter, and a mid-bell, but you are able to adjust this. So first off, let's just go ahead and increase the high-pass filter to 76 Hertz. Let's go ahead and pull the low-pass filter down to 4000 Hertz. You can really hear the higher frequencies get rolled off. And just to make things even better, let's increase the mids by 5.5 dB. This is going to sound terrible. First, let's pull down that mid boost because that is insane. Nobody would be doing that. That is just awful sounding. And if you right-click any of these points, it does allow you to adjust the type of EQ you're doing. So in default, you have high pass, low pass, and then band pass or a bell. If we right-click the top item, we can change from low pass to high shelf. This is probably going to be more useful for a lot of people. Then it just gives you the ability to boost everything above X frequency. So right now I have a 3 dB boost above 5 kilohertz. This is going to be most useful for people. It's what they're going to like. The high pass filter I would leave. I like having a high pass around 60 to 75 hertz. Just to be funny, 69 hertz. Nice. And then in the mids, I know people love this. Just cut a bunch at 400 hertz. There you go. And if you want to get even more gamer, you know what? We're going to do a low shelf and we're going to boost everything below 140 hertz. And then, you know what? We'll cut around 500. I can't even hear what this sounds like, but I bet it sounds awesome. This is just the ultimate EQ right here. So that's the Elgato built-in EQ. Let's go ahead and disengage that because I bet that sounds terrible. Next, we have a De-Esser. I'm going to engage that and then open up the settings. And I am going to start over so you can see how you set this up. So what we'll do is hit this microphone icon and then read this sentence. De-Esser, smooth the sharp S sounds. And what did it have it at? 70%. As you can tell, this gives me a lisp. We can go 100%. Now we are just terrible. This is awful. I hate everything about it. Even down at around 70%, I know it causes a lisp sound. When I was testing this, I found that I had to roll it down to maybe 25% to be more useful. If you do want to dive a little bit more into this, you can select Customize, and this allows you to adjust the frequencies which you're de-essing or de-chutting, and you can adjust your compression ratio, the attack speed, and the release speed, just in case you want to dive into that a little bit more. And then you just have this top-level intensity slider to simplify things. Now I have the compressor engaged, and this is what we see when we have this open. It shows our input level, it shows our gain reduction amount, and it shows our output level. Right here in the center, we have this graphical representation of our level, and we can adjust the threshold to determine how much compression we're actually doing. So now we're getting 4 to 6 to 7 to 10 to 11, 13, 15 decibels of gain reduction, and I was probably distorting as well, so it sounded awful. That is a bit much, so let's go ahead and bring this back up to maybe minus 15 dB. If you click these sliders in the upper right-hand corner, this gives you the ability to adjust the ratio, attack, release, makeup gain. This is set to auto makeup gain. For most people, that'll be fine, and that is how the compressor works. So in reality, here is how I would have all of my processing enabled. Just a high pass filter, very light de-essing, and then also very light compression where we're only getting maybe 1 to 2 dB of gain reduction. I really wish we had the clip guard feature as well, but I understand you can't have all the features on all the microphones. But there you go. That is a quick rundown of the Wavelink software and the processing available for the Wave Neo. Believe me, I know the world needs another $100-ish USB condenser microphone like it needs a hole in the head. Just like me. I need one less hole in my head so I can stop talking, but I actually don't hate this thing. And first up, as far as pros, I thought this thing did a very nice job at background noise rejection of the keyboard and the reverb in the untreated room. Also, there was no resonance on this thing at all. It also has a mute button, which I am always a huge fan of, and it comes with everything that you need to get set up and start recording or streaming. And then as far as cons, this first one is more of an FYI. If you monitor through Wavelink, there is a bit of delay, so I found that to be pretty useless if you're recording music. I had to monitor through the DAW. That was my solution. And secondly, this is just a feature I wish it had. Elgato has clip guard. It is one of my all-time favorite features on any microphone or a USB audio interface. The fact that it's missing, I gotta take it down a peg or two. Come on, that would have made this so much cooler. Just please give me clip guard, even if I have to pay $5 more to get it. It's so worth it, in my opinion. And now, what are my overall thoughts and opinions of the Elgato Wave Neo? As far as the overall sound, I would classify this as somewhat warm with a tamer top end. The bass frequencies aren't overpowering, but then in the low mids, you can get quite a robust sound. The just general mids are a little bit congested, but overall very nice. And then the treble and air are still there, but they are a bit darker, especially compared to a lot of the $100 to $150 USB condenser competition. I'm not going to wax poetic about how this thing performed for music because that's not what it was designed for, but I did find that it offered a very usable sound on every application, a bit warmer, a bit smoother, and more rolled off in the upper frequencies compared to a lot of $100 microphones, which are going to offer that much brighter, sometimes harsher top end. And what this was designed for is spoken word, and for that application, I think this works very well. It offers that warm sound, a bit darker and smoother in the upper frequencies, and overall, some people may not like that, some people will love it, but what I think it's offering is a very inoffensive sound that is easy to listen to. And to wrap up, would I recommend the Elgato Wave Neo? Yeah, kind of. As far as the sound of this goes, I think it's a nice sounding microphone, and more than that, I think it's offering a different sound than a lot of its competition. Most affordable USB condenser microphones are overly bright, sometimes harsh, and I find them sometimes to be fatiguing to listen to. This goes the opposite direction and doesn't offer this hyper detailed sound. Some may find it to sound a little bit lower detail, but I think that can work in its favor because it is easy to listen to. So tonally, if that's what you're looking for, I think this is a nice option. Then as far as the functionality, I think this thing offers quite a bit with the full digital mixer. You're getting EQ, compression, de-esser, noise gate, and noise removal, all which will be very useful for anybody in a conference call, in a voice chat, anything like that. I do just wish it had clip guard. Give me clip guard, please. I will pay you for it. All right, I'll shut up about clip guard after I say one more thing about clip guard. If you're a gamer, or if you're a streamer, or if you are somebody who is very dynamic with how you speak, you go from speaking quietly to speaking very loudly, I think something like the Elgato Wave 3 would be the better option, or the Wave XLR would be a better option because you're getting that clip guard function. But if you're more consistent with how you speak and maybe you don't scream at people when you're on calls at work, which is always a good thing, then I think this is more than sufficient without that clip guard feature, and it offers a ton of other stuff to help you improve this sound and make your voice a bit easier to understand in those calls.